I just want to check, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for the unincorporated Alameda County Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Amber Lowe. I'm the Principal Civil Engineer for the Alameda County Public Works Agency Transportation Division. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few things. First, I want to remind everyone that, we are conducting tonight's meeting remotely via teleconference, and the teleconferencing guidelines were provided with the agenda. And if you're experiencing any kind of technical difficulties, you can call the Public Works Help Desk at 510-670-5755 for assistance. And then public participants will have an opportunity to provide comments during the public comments for each item on the agenda. And to do that, you would raise your virtual hand to be called on. And then if you're joining by phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. And then each member of the public will have up to 3 minutes to speak. And I just want to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded. Okay, and then this is the agenda for tonight. This was sent out in the packet. After the meeting's call to order, we'll do a roll call and public comments, then reading and approval of the minutes. We have 2 presentations tonight, and then we'll take suggestions for future agenda topics, and we will adjourn the meeting. Okay. And then with that, I call the meeting to order for today's date is September 28th, 2023, and the time is now 6:05. To start, let's do the roll call for our BPAC members. Let's see, where's my list? Hold on, let me take a look to see if anybody's in the attendees. Okay, I'm gonna do roll call now. Sharon Bahoman. Shonita Chu.
Present.
Bruce Doogie.
President.
Rachel Factor. Dan Leary.
Here.
Cindy Torres. Crystal Wang.
Here.
Nikki Winty. Michael Williams.
Sorry, didn't work. Here.
Thank you. So we have 5 members of the BPAC with us tonight. We do have a quorum, so we can vote. Okay, next item is public comment. If anyone is in the public area would like to speak on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda, please raise your virtual hand. And if you're calling by phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. And you're going to have 3 minutes to speak. Give me a second. I see one hand up. Sorry. Roy, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I unmuted myself, Amber, yes.
Okay. Let's see. Sorry, it's been like 6 months since I did this. There we go. You may start.
All right, thank you. Okay, thanks, Amber. So I wanted to just make the same comment that I made at the June meeting, which was a great meeting actually in person, regarding the membership of the committee. And that is that there are several members of the committee that actually represent other agencies. Yeah. And I'd like to just explain again why I think this is an issue. So I understand that those people, volunteer for this and it's all with good intentions. And actually those agencies do a good job of providing bike and ped facilities. But the issue is really a conflict of interest. So you cannot be part of an agency that is actually implementing infrastructure and be part of the supervisory or governing body that reviews and provides feedback on those projects. Yeah, they are different lanes. And so there's a real separation of duties issue here where, we have people who are presenting projects that their agencies are working on, and they also sit on the committee and they can, give feedback on those as well. It's a little bit, if you were building, 100 houses, yeah, you were a big developer, you would not be on the planning commission. Yeah, there are always these separation of duties. In fact, most BPACs don't allow members of agencies to be on the BPAC. The Alameda County BPAC actually excludes it and does not allow it. It's in the charter that members, employees of agencies where the employees involved in infrastructure improvements are not allowed to be part of the BPAC. So, it's not about the people, it's not about the commitment and the willingness, it's actually not about the good work that's done in all those agencies, but you have to have separation of duties, otherwise you don't have a meaningful governing body. So I just wanted to make the same point again that I made last time. The last time I made it, Director Will Dessenbeck said he valued the input from those other agencies, and that's great. Go get it, because all those agencies should be collaborating and working together anyway. This is not the forum for those agencies to be sharing information between each other. You should all be doing that anyway yourselves as part of your day-to-day jobs. Yeah. So I would really like to see the BPAC made up of people who are residents of the unincorporated area, and it predominantly, those people would make up the membership. Okay, thank you, Amber.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Okay, I don't see any other hands up, so we're going to go to the next item on the agenda, which is reading and approval of minutes. So I'm going to open it up to the committee if anybody has any questions or comments about the minutes. And then if not, if somebody can make a motion and second, then we can do a vote.
If there's no comments, I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and second to approve the minutes from our meeting in June. So I want to conduct a roll call for the vote to approve the minutes. I'm just going to call on the BPAC members that are here. Chonita Chu.
Approved.
Bruce Doogie.
Sure, approved.
Dan Leary.
Aye.
Crystal Wang.
Yes.
Michael Williams.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda is the presentation. We have two presentations tonight. The first one is our Public Works Agency's Higher Avenue Sidewalk Improvement Project. And with us to do the presentation is Elizabeth Wong. She's our Associate Civil Engineer in the Road Design section, and she's the project manager and project engineer for this project.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Am I sharing a screen yet? No. Okay, let me start sharing. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, but not the slideshow mode. Okay, there it goes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Hi, good evening. This is Elizabeth Wong, and I'm the engineer for this project. And tonight I will present to you the Higher Avenue Sidewalk Improvement Project. The project is located on Higher Avenue in Castro Valley. From Redwood Road to Center Street, there are various schools and businesses and points of interest in the vicinity of this area. Let's look at some of the existing conditions of the sidewalk. Look at the site photos. We can find gaps in sidewalk. There are cars parking on pedestrian pathway due to lack of vertical curbs. Some of the areas are damaged on the sidewalk, unimproved areas. There we can find also ponding of water and curb returns with no ramps. To summarize what we just saw, gaps in sidewalk, pedestrians walking shoulder or roadways because cars are often parked on pedestrian pathways, sidewalk in deteriorated conditions at some of the locations, lack of proper design and unimproved areas, ponding of water due to lack of continuous standard curb and gutter, and there is also a bus running from Madison Avenue to Center Street on Higher Avenue. This project is in our bicycle and pedestrian master plan as a prioritized sidewalk project. The plan recommends Class 2 bike lane for Higher Avenue between Redwood Road and Center Street. Our goal is to provide a safe and functional corridor for all users that enhances walkability and accessibility to local schools, businesses, and residents, implements pedestrian and bicycle facilities, improves traffic safety, improves drainage, treats roadway stormwater runoff, rehabilitates and repairs the pavement, and also improves corridor aesthetics. To achieve the project goals we just mentioned, we propose to provide a continuous concrete curb, gutter, and sidewalk, ADA compliant curb ramps at all pedestrian crossings, intersection bump outs, high visibility crosswalks, bikeway facilities, street trees, storm drain improvements, and pavement rehabilitation. We have developed 2 design alternatives to incorporate the improvements previously mentioned. The alternatives were developed keeping in mind of constructing the improvements within the county right-of-way of 60 feet. Within this limit, design alternative 1, we can provide a Class 2 bike lane on both sides of the road. We can also provide a 7-foot wide sidewalk for pedestrians. Parking on both sides of the road can also be maintained. We'll put in barbells and trees where necessary. However, the bike lane for this design alternative is not buffered. Let's look at design alternative 2 that we considered. Within the county right-of-way of 60 feet, a buffered Class 2 bike lane on both sides of the road can be provided. A 7 to 8 foot wide sidewalk on both sides of the road as well. Barbells and trees will be included. Barbell and street trees will be included. However, one side of this on-street parking will be removed on one side of the road. Here's a summary table to compare both design alternatives side by side. Alternative 1 is our Class 2 bike lane scheme. Sidewalk, we can maintain a 6-foot wide sidewalk. We can maintain on-street parking on both sides of the road. We can include barbells and street trees. However, the bike lane is not buffered. For design alternative 2, we can offer a buffered Class 2 bike lane. We can keep sidewalk from at about 7 foot to 8 foot wide. However, there's just only one side. We can only offer on-street parking for one side of the road. We can also include barbells and street trees. The county conducted a bike count on the 30th of August this year. It is a Wednesday and it is a regular school day. Bike count was conducted at 4 intersections. They are Redwood Road, Forest Avenue, Madison Avenue, and Center Street. Here shows the total number of bikes passing through these intersections within a 24-hour period. This shows the bike count at the 4 intersections during the morning peak hours. Morning peak hours happen between 6:30 to 9 o'clock a.m. This slide shows the bike count at the 4 intersections during afternoon peak hours. Afternoon peak hours happen between 1:30 to 3 p.m. at 3 other intersections, except for Forest and Higher, which happens at 5:45 to 6:30 p.m. A recent parking study was also conducted during the period of August 30th to September 6th to observe the parking utilization at various locations along the road. This slide shows the assumed behavior for projected parking utilization if parking on the south side of the road is eliminated. Removal of parking on the south side results in elimination of a total of 79 spaces. Parking utilization will be over 100% between Redwood Road and Pine Haven Place. Similarly, removal of parking on the north side results in elimination of 74 spaces. Parking utilization will be over 100 between Redwood Road and Forest Avenue on the south side. This project is planned to be constructed within county right-of-way of 60 feet, but might change as design develops. It requires permits to enter for approximately 82 properties. Encroachments will be removed and property owners will be contacted individually. We are planning to present this project at a public meeting in spring 2024. Final design is anticipated to be completed by spring 2025 and be ready for advertisement in spring 25 as well. Construction and utility relocation will start in summer 2025, and all these dates are tentative. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your time to attend this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So let's first go to our BPAC committee for their comments. I saw Bruce's hand has been up for a while, and then Crystal also has her hand up. So I'll let you guys go in that order. Go ahead, Bruce.
Hello, Elizabeth. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for bike lanes. We need bike lanes, especially in that area that connect our two largest schools. The one thing that I would like to say is in your analysis, you're not showing the community the benefits of bike lanes to make the choice between alternative 1 and alternative 2. The idea of removing parking. We want to talk about how that might affect the increase in cycling, right? Alternative 1 would theoretically increase cycling to some amount, and alternative 2 might increase it more. And we also want to talk about the benefits of that, right? So the climate action plan calls for higher mode share, bicycle mode share, and you should also talk about how this fits into complete streets, because the alt-1, the problem with alt-1 is that you're having an extremely narrow parking lane, 7-foot parking lane, and then a 5-foot bicycle lane. So you have only 12 feet from curb to to the edge of the roadway, and so that's a pretty dangerous bike lane. That's a pretty common bike lane. There was a bike lane just like that that's in Oakland on Lakeshore Drive in Oakland, where the little girl Maya, her name was Maya Correa. She just got killed in August, actually, and so she got doored. She was on the back of her dad's. They had one of those bicycles that had a trail bike, and somebody opened the door into them, and they both fell over, and she died a few days later from a brain injury, brain damage. So I myself has experienced these bike lanes. We have them right there on in Castro Valley Boulevard downtown, right by the village, with 10-foot travel lanes instead of 11-foot travel lanes. But otherwise, it's pretty similar, and people don't want to use those bike lanes because they don't feel safe. And so I would like to recommend that you put in some of the advantages of some of the trade-offs which you get for these various bike lanes, and I would also like to suggest that we do the alt-2, and especially when all the cars fit on one side. So basically, your percentages made it kind of look like really bad, like especially that 175% looks really terrible, but that actually turned out to just be 3 cars. So if you remove parking on the south side, then you only have 7 extra cars. And when you remove parking on the north side, it's only 2 extra cars. So people should also know the absolute numbers, because one of those students sometimes parks in my house, and I can have them park here permanently and help fix this 50% of your problem. Because that's the other thing, is that stretch that you're talking about where most of the demand is the school. And so it's not residential demand, it's the demand from the school. And so, you know, they park, the school kids park out, you know, like on, they can park further down, basically. They already do. So, and you know, it's a worthwhile trade-off for having safe bike lanes. And actually, they should be protected bike lanes. They really should be, you know, have a curb of some kind instead of just being buffered. And the other thing I would say is please use 10-foot. I know there's a bus in here. Please use 10-foot lanes. We have 10-foot lanes in the bus lane in Castro Valley Boulevard. The bus can go over into the bike lane when it needs to, especially if it's buffered. So everything, you know, all the modern transportation theory calls for narrower bike driver lanes. 12-foot is standard freeway, and you're only removing a single foot. I mean, we need to go to 10-foot, and if we can compromise to 10.5, then let's do that. But this idea of insisting on 11-foot travel lanes is not safe, and it increases speeds for the drivers. So I guess that's kind of it for now. I do want to get the raw parking data so I can take a closer look at it myself. I also was wondering if, you know, you could go to 2 feet for the planters instead of 3 feet. So, because right now, wherever there's a planter, I guess you only have 4 feet, which is kind of narrow for somebody in a wheelchair. But I kind of think for some reason that Santa Maria has 2 foot, but I could be wrong on that. I guess that's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce. Crystal?
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. So I understand that there may be right-of-way constraints here, but I just wanted to note that AC Transit actually asks for sidewalks in the bus stop areas to be 8 feet wide to ensure ADA compliant access so that the bus ramp can actually be deployed and that passengers in wheelchairs can safely navigate. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Dan?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Wong, for the presentation. And had a couple of questions and then a few thoughts I wanted to share. On the, you know, because obviously parking, I mean, this is such a challenge, right? You've got right away that's too narrow. On-street parking is always one of the biggest challenges we face. One thing I was going to ask or suggest is on the parking counts. I saw there was a time period. Were those done in the daytime?
For parking?
Yeah, the counts.
Is actually throughout the day.
Yeah, I can answer for that.
Yeah.
The parking
you.
was done over that time period that was on the slide. I don't remember the exact date, but like at different hours on different days of the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see. So nighttime also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that sometimes gives a different picture, like what the parking looks like during the day. Because like data is like super important to answer all the questions that they're going to be coming your way. So if you know, like, it might be good to show like what the daytime percentages versus the nighttime percentages, because that gets into the locals, how they park, you know, if they're at work or they're at home. And looking at the, you know, just like any corridor, there's different parts to the corridor. And I was noticing, is it Center Street? That's the east end of the project. And if you start from Center, and granted, it's not the whole way, but from Center to Madison, if you go out in the field and look kind of house by house, you can see that in that area on the north side, there's some kind of alternate parking, you know, because you're looking for, somebody might claim, I want parking for my guests. And so it looks to me, and it's only about 1,200 feet. So it's about a third of the whole distance. So we're not talking about the whole length, but at least in that segment, you know, they have those I'll call them alleyways or that go back. There's one segment that's just a church frontage, they got a huge parking lot. And then you've got some multifamily areas that have on-site parking. So I don't know if that helps at all, but if you're looking like, it might not be this problem the whole length. There might be areas where the people who actually, they're not even fronting on, can you say the street name? Is it Hayer?
I think it's higher. That's the
Higher, I
local
apologize.
people. No.
Nothing
Yeah.
worse than saying a street name wrong if someone lives there, but Higher Street, a lot of the houses, the way they're designed, is they point towards the alley. Now, some of the alleys are narrow. I don't know if that's the right term to use, alley. It's called a place. There's, they all have different names, but they have red curb, but some of them are a little bit wider, and you can see where people are, even on Google, or if you go out there in person, you can see people are using those for parking. So there might be on-site parking at some of those in that area. That's just as you get into design, it's never like one template, maybe the whole way through, but we want continuity, of course. Now I wanted to ask about alternative 1, please. Do you mind showing that? I just had a thought here. So one kind of, let me move the faces out of the way here. Okay. There we go. Thank you for that. Okay. So I just wanted to ask what one, I'll call it tool or trick, is that you've got there's two different, on the north side, which is the right-hand side, there's no street lights, there's no utility poles. So that sidewalk is a little flexible. The left-hand side has street lights and poles. So you do need to have 7, sometimes we say 7.5, but what sometimes, and you can see this in Redwood City and Vallejo, where you can, where there's parking, the parking isn't like back to back the whole way, but you might have 3 cars and then a pocket where you could put a sign or a tree or something, where the sidewalk, I don't know if it's allowed, it could be a little narrower, like enough for the pedestrian. I know we had the issue with the bus, that's all situational, but the sidewalk was a little narrower there, enough room for ADA and the pedestrians, and you have to do something, the driveways have to be special where you go down. I know that's not the best situation, but then you can use that parking zone can also become like kind of your flex zone to put, if someday you want to add trees or you want to add lighting or a sign, and then that way you get a little more traffic calming, because then the curve comes out more. Like you see that car there on the right-hand side, if there was an island like right in front of that, you could put a little sign there. And the sidewalk would be clear, but maybe only 5 feet wide. I know that's like not ideal, but then you're getting 2 feet back right there. And it'd be nice to keep the south side 7 feet, because the poles aren't going to move anytime soon. Then you'd have enough room to keep. So you go 7 and 5, you might get there on the bike lane width without taking all the parking on one side. So that's just something to think about. But it's a very, very tough situation. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Dan. Does any other BPAC member want to speak on it, or I'll go to the public? Michael? You're muted.
Here we go. Okay. So kind of, I want to echo a little bit. Well, let me ask. So Crystal, you said AC Transit wants or requires 8-foot sidewalks typically, or where they can be 8 feet?
Yeah, at the bus stop areas.
At the bus stop areas,
Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then where are you with 10-foot bus lanes?
Yeah, there have been instances where we have that. So the bus itself is 8.5 feet wide, and then when you add on the mirrors, it becomes 10 feet. And so we typically ask for 11 just to account for driver behavior or whatever, just to be conservative like that. But there have been instances where we're kind of forced to go down to or operate in a 10-foot lane.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So I think I do want to sort of either echo or support Bruce's point. One thing I think that is occurring where we do have, where bike lanes occur, just wherever they occur, where they can be buffered or, physically protected, if it becomes a class 4, I think that is better. That does help get more people out, because I know a lot of times people say, oh, well, there's not that many cyclists, and, they do counts, and people that live there say they're not riding, but a lot of cyclists don't ride because they don't feel safe. And it's been, there are lots of studies where people do feel safer, and where protection is given, safety is, has been made available, people do tend to ride more. That's one. And then also with the advent of e-bikes, I mean, some of these e-bikes, the class 1s and class 2s, are becoming almost like motorcycles. So you're really getting a lot of people. And again, this is kind of like, yeah, you might not have a lot of people on there right now necessarily, but again, I'm just, throwing this out that, with the advent of e-bikes in particular, they're allowing people that generally haven't ridden before to experience riding, because now they can go further without having to ride under their own power. And so there's a lot more people getting out on the roads where, there are protected bike lanes. So I'm just saying, if mode share or mode shift is a priority, and if climate change is a priority, wherever those things are and wherever funding supports those kinds of things, it really kind of only comes about with better protected bike lanes and better classes of bike lanes. So just throwing that out there. I'm not saying we have to do it here, but that's just a point, I think. So thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Bruce?
Yeah, I really want to echo what Michael just said. Something that I forgot to say is the demand for the mode goes up significantly when the infrastructure feels good. So we have low bike counts on higher because it's like a freeway, and we also have low bike counts on Somerset because cyclists are forced to ride right in front of cars. I mean, it's the only way to go down Somerset. So we would definitely not get any more mode shift without bike lanes. But even these sort of dangerous bike lanes, people just don't want to use them. I mean, on Castro Valley Boulevard, people ride their bikes on the sidewalk. I see it routinely right next to the bike lanes, and there are bike lanes there. And moving those, to 10-foot lanes is, I think, really important. But what I really wanted to say was, so far the scope of this, so we're always looking for continuous bike routes, bike lanes, and the bike lanes will end actually right before what I call higher hill, right at center. And so the most difficult thing in getting to like Canyon Middle School is getting up and over that hill. And in fact, I tried to get Public Works to install, when you guys were installing those pedestrian ramps, to at least put a pedestrian ramp on the as you go up the hill. So I guess that's heading east. On the right-hand side, that curve still is a solid curve, I believe. It doesn't have a pedestrian ramp. So there's no way for if somebody wanted to take the sidewalk, which is also incredibly narrow, and it's impossible for them to do that. So it's anyway, we should also address this stretch that's from center to I guess it's Coal Canyon, because that's also a really critical stretch. And there is a nice strip along that lagoon where it used to be the lagoon or whatever, and that's fantastic. And you guys even widened it from its original plan, which I think is fantastic. And I use it all the time. That's how I go. So when I go westbound, I take that thing, and then I stay on the sidewalk till I get to top of Higher Hill, and then I jump on the road. But going the other way, going east, there's just no way to even take the sidewalk, and you block the cars, of course, because the road's super narrow, and people get upset. I've had a number of incidences there, and I used to ride my daughters to Canyon for their running practice, and it was really harrowing a number of times. And I have video of all this stuff. So anyway, I think that, basically the question is, what are we going to do in that section? I know there's some, space constraints, but how are we going to fix that?
Thanks, Bruce. Dan, you just popped back in. You want to say something else?
Yeah, since we're deliberating here, maybe I could direct a question towards Crystal. What I've seen is in cities regarding the bus lane question, about half or maybe more than half, or like you said, 11 feet. But where I've seen, obviously it's not ideal, but a little flexibility. If there is a buffer, the buffer of the bike lane, if it's near the bus lane, is sometimes by some agencies considered a shared zone. Like it's a zone to provide safety for the bike, but it's also part of that extra 1 foot that we'd like to have for the bus. Or even if you're at 10.5, and then you have a 10.5 adjacent to a righteous buffer, then that could be treated or considered as similar to like operating like an 11 foot, like everybody's kind of staying in their lane, and is that correct what I'm saying, Crystal?
Yeah, I think so. We'd have to, or I'd want to take a close look at specifics, but in general, sounds right.
Thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah, I just want to add that the whole point, like if we want to shift mode, is we need to build bike lanes that people want to ride on, right? So even if we were to do those tweaks, the question is, would that be enough to entice cyclists to come on? Maybe I'd like to propose maybe moving the parking out towards and then maybe maintaining that 11-foot lane then, and move the parking out and call it a protected parking bike lane. That would be the most ideal thing. Or the other thing would be to move the sidewalk all the way into like 5 feet into so move the parking out. You can either try to put an actual bike lane between the curb and the parked cars, or you can just make that whole area multi-use, And I know there's concerns about driveways, but residential driveways, they're frequent, but they're not used very much. They're not like a business. And so I have seen examples of multi-use path that is parking protected, that is along frequent driveways. And I really think that's actually what would pull people in, and those people would want to ride to school and to the store and things like that. That's what we need. Thanks.
I don't see any more hands from the BPAC, so let's go to the public. There's one hand up. Roy, give me a second. There you go. You can unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I had actually raised my hand to talk about at the previous item as well, which you may have missed, but that's fine on the minutes. But so on this, yeah, I think the counts, firstly, the counts can be very deceptive. I don't know why you do the bike counts, because they always kind of come out low. They obviously will come out low because it's a very dangerous street to bike on. And then all that does is it really starts to create splits in the community, where you get these factions of people saying, well, there's nobody biking, therefore we don't need bike lanes, yeah. And it just really starts the whole process off on, in the wrong way. The counts don't say anything about demand, yeah. And I think Bruce was making this point. What we need to do is try and measure demand, not current use in some way, in order to drive the need for bike lanes. It's interesting that you don't count pedestrians and try and justify sidewalks by counting pedestrians. You just assume sidewalks are good and everybody's going to say yes to that. But if you applied the same concept to sidewalks, it would be interesting. I don't know why in both examples the bike lane the parking is against the curb, and then the bike lane is to the left of that, and then the traffic to the left of that. Why can't the bike lane be against the curb? Because the problem with that design is every time a car parks and every time a car leaves, they have to cross the bike lane. Yeah. And so you can avoid that by simply switching those two around and having the bike lane first to the right and then the parking to the left. And it's very normal. You see it in many cities. It's in San Francisco like that. I was just in Boston and Worcester. It's like that. It seems a fairly modern design. So I maybe, consider that. I think the thing about bike lanes, it's not only about safety, it's about, do they go anywhere? Yeah. Nobody's going to use the bike lane if it doesn't actually go somewhere. And I do think this does nothing to improve safety down to Canyon Middle School. That section going down the hill has got to be the most dangerous road in Castro Valley to ride a bike on. It's horrendous. And so it's going to do nothing to improve the safety of anybody riding down to Canyon. And then the last point, members of the committee. There's a long lead time here before this gets to design and implementation. So ask for this to come back with an update based on your comments, because what happens to all your comments that you make in all these meetings? The answer is nothing. You need to ask that this be brought back and they show how they have incorporated your comments into the design. Thank you.
Bruce, due to interest of time, like, do you have something to add? Can we make it quick so that we can get to Crystal's presentation? And then, like, if anybody has any other comments, you can send it to us after.
Yeah, I would like to ask for it to come back because before it does get to the public, we need to have another look at it. And especially like Roy said, with the bike counts, that just causes trouble because like you said, they're small and they don't take into account the actual demand. Because I know lots of people are interested because I talked to lots of parents, and so they're interested, but they're not going to ride on present day, and they're not going to you're going to get some more with the 5-foot bike lane makes a 7-foot car lane, but you're not going to get that many more. So yeah, if you could bring it back before it goes out to the public again, that I would appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth, for your presentation. Okay, let's go to our next one. We have Crystal's presentation from AC Transit regarding the transit supportive design guidelines.
Thank you. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, great. So today I'm just going to provide an introductory overview of AC Transit's transit supportive design guidelines effort. So AC Transit is currently getting started on a transit supportive design guidelines document that's intended to help cities and jurisdictions understand transit infrastructure and operational needs, especially in conjunction with other streetscape projects like bike lane and pedestrian safety projects. So we intend for this document to be a reference for all cities and jurisdictions we operate in, as basically a guide for planners and engineers to use as they're designing projects on their streets. And this current effort is an update to our 2018 multimodal design guidelines, which was focused on recommendations for integrating bus infrastructure with bike facilities, and mainly provided guidance on designs that would both support safe bus operations and reduce bus-bike conflicts. But with this current effort now, we want to update the document to provide clear guidance to jurisdictions about the needs for a truly multimodal corridor environment, including transit, paratransit, cyclists, and pedestrians, and not just focus on bikes and buses. So we want this document to cover the operational needs of transit, but with a multimodal approach and with considerations for all users of the street. So this time around, we intend to expand on the guidelines and address how to accommodate paratransit needs, comfort for people accessing and waiting at bus stops, and also other transit operational needs that should be considered, like bus layover space. So basically a more comprehensive set of multimodal guidelines that everyone can reference in designing their streetscape improvement projects. And of course, everything is context sensitive, and not everything in the guidelines is going to be applicable to every city street, like streets with constrained right of way or streets that are designed to carry high traffic volumes. But the overall intent is that the recommendation in these guidelines will be applicable to most streets. So I'm not going to go over all of these items, but basically the new guidelines document is going to include all this content and information that jurisdictions can work from, like bus stop dimensions, designs that aren't compatible with transit, minimum width requirements, paratransit operational needs, pedestrian safety and access improvements, bus layover needs, and so on. And on the topic of paratransit service in particular, paratransit is curb to curb service for people using wheelchairs or people with mobility needs. So it requires access to the curb and room on the sidewalk to deploy a lift or a ramp. And unfortunately, there have been instances of projects implemented in the AC transit service area that preclude access to the curb. So we want to provide guidance on this in the guidelines so that cities and jurisdictions know that paratransit service exists and that it's important to accommodate access for paratransit users, and that there are ways to accommodate paratransit needs in their street designs. Really, since mobility for people with disabilities should be accommodated as part of all transit projects. So on outreach, we plan to reach out to various groups like this BPAC, other BPACs, city transportation commissions, accessibility advisory groups, and a variety of other groups for feedback throughout this process. We'll also be developing a technical working group with representatives from all the 14 cities in the AC transit service area and the 2 counties. So in summary, just a lot of outreach. And finally, this is just a high-level overview of the schedule for this effort. We're still pretty early in the process. So far, only the project kickoff has happened. And we hope to have the first workshop scheduled in the next month or so. And all the workshops listed here refer specifically to workshops with the technical working group. But like I said earlier, we do still plan to go to various BPACs and committees for input throughout the process. And finally, the goal is to have the Transit Supportive Design Guidelines document completed by spring 2024. And with that, I guess I'll take everyone's questions.
Sorry, I was muted. I was calling on Bruce. I saw his hand first, and then Dan.
Thanks, Crystal. By sheer coincidence, I am actually taking a BART trip to El Cerrito del Norte early in the morning tomorrow. And then I am jumping on the Napa something express that takes me up to Napa. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to bring my bicycle because we're going to do some riding in Napa. So this kind of fits right into that kind of stuff. Bike and bus stuff. In terms of the curb thing you were talking about, this paratransit, maybe you could have some pictures or something to show how the curb is required. Do they load from the side or from the back, or how does it work?
Yeah, that's a good point. We can include pictures in future presentations, but yeah, they just pull up to the curb in a parking spot, for example, and then everyone has to deploy from the right side of the vehicle.
So this only works for parallel parking. It doesn't work for, what happens if you don't have parallel parking?
Yeah, that's a problem. They're not allowed to go in driveways because the paratransit vans aren't allowed to back up. Typically, they don't stop in bus stops either because there could be conflicts with a bus. So they tend to just pull up to the curb and parallel park.
So there's no way to load from the rear.
No.
So a buffered bike lane would work, but like if we wanted to move parking over and we used it as a paint, like you don't literally need the curb, but you could unload into the bike lane, right?
That, I guess it's just not preferred to avoid any conflicts.
No, I
But-
get that. I get that. And if it's a busy bike lane, then
Yeah.
that's a problem. But if it's not a busy bike lane, then there would be a little conflict.
And the difficulty with paratransit is, since it is curb to curb and sometimes door to door, origins and destinations vary, times vary.
Right.
So it becomes a little bit difficult. So we just need to make sure there's always at least a location for paratransit to serve.
Right. And then, but the other issue is, like you say, the number, just like these bike counts, the paratransit count would be quite low. Right. So, and there's, whatever we do to the streets probably don't change the demand, I wouldn't think, for paratransit. Unlike bike lanes, the design actually changes the demand.
Right.
So it seems like maybe we could, that you could unload into a bike lane, especially if it was buffered, right? Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, go ahead.
Yes, well, thank you, Crystal. Looks like a very ambitious schedule you have here. You'll be very busy until
Yeah.
springtime. So good luck with that. I just had a couple questions on kind of a detail things about site furnishings and then the details in the guidelines. Is there going to be any changes or on the benches and the shelters and or signage or trash receptacles, things like that?
Yeah, so we actually have a separate, or AC Transit has a separate guidelines document that's specific to street furniture.
Okay.
And talks specifically about shelters and benches, but no real changes.
Okay, so that one thing I'm from using the past guidelines, I saw the 2018 one. There's a lot of really good diagrams that are in there, like isometric, like views. You even showed some in your presentation, and those actually are really, we steal those all the time when you're explaining something. Are they going to go next level where they actually have like what type of yield arrows, where the, because some of it's kind of custom, how you do the little crosswalk if you have a class 4 where the bikeway is behind the shelter, and standardizing some of that, like the barrier that can sometimes go between where the bikeway is and the shelter. Is there going to be details like that, like we can just refer to in the future?
Yeah, at this point in the process, I don't have specifics on that, but that's a good point, and I will bring that up to the team.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Michael?
Okay, hi. Thank you, Crystal. It was a great presentation, and so not surprised to see it coming, but I guess it was due to come anyway, because I know there's been issues that have occurred over the years, and there's been a lot of push for ped and bike improvements, and I know transit has often gotten kicked to the curb on some level, so I get that. So this is, it's due for you guys, so I get that. I think I wanted two things. I'm going to ask for. One is sort of a favor or a request, and that's for HARD, Hayward Area Recreation Park District, to be one of the community groups or to be on the technical advisory committee, something involved in some kind of way as an agency. We're the largest agency of our kind in the state, I believe, and certainly we have over 100 square miles in unincorporated Alameda County, and 100 something, over 120 parks and facilities. And so everything we do is about people transiting to get to our facilities. No one lives on the parks. They all come from somewhere. And so I'm, just in my role, I am working to make sure that we're looking at all of those forms, so like we're somewhat incorporating transit awareness into, our agency. And no one's been doing that before now, but just because of my role, I happen to be trying to fold it in as much as I can. So that's one request. And then the second thing is I do want to, kind of like I did with the e-bikes earlier, I just want to kind of go on record as saying the whole issue with paratransit, it's just kind of like the e-bikes. There's a big demand out there. Everyone doesn't see it, but it's only increasing. So I definitely support, paratransit's been overlooked and kind of in the shadows, and people don't think that there's a lot to it or that there's a lot of use, but paratransit there's a big demand. There's a lot of need. It's a spectrum of needs too. It's not just, one wheelchair. It's not always just wheelchairs. It's not always, there's a range of disability issues that paratransit helps support. So just saying all that's going to have to go into design, and so that, the bikes and peds and drivers are going to have to take that stuff into consideration too. It's like, got to share the wealth. But yeah, I definitely see that it's not new, but it's only increasing. And so whatever attention that we need to start giving to it, we need to do that. So just going on record for that.
Yeah, thanks for those comments. And we are currently in the process of identifying all the meeting dates and setting up the technical working group. So if it does make most sense for HARD to be part of the working group, we'll do that. Or we'll just reach out separately.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for me. So.
Oh, Amber, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay, now if there's no more comments from the BPAC, let's go to the public. If anybody wants to speak, could you raise your virtual hand? Okay, I don't see any hands up. So thank you, Crystal, for your presentation. Really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the guidelines coming out. And yeah, let's go to I think the next item is the future agenda topics. Roy, did you want to speak on about the AC Transit?
No, on the next item.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, so yeah, BPAC, if there's any future suggestions, like suggestions for future agenda topics. Bruce?
Yeah, I would like to talk the area. So right now there's a few cars that are blocking the bike lane in it's called DOS sheet metal or something. It's on East Castro Valley Boulevard. I guess that's the north side near the Crow Canyon, and so it's just east of Crow Canyon. It's a downhill direction for the bicyclists, so cyclists go pretty fast. And right now the way cyclists have to swerve around these cars, and there's like 4 of them maybe at the most. Lately there's only been 1, sometimes 2, but anyway, they really stick out. And there's on-street parking, or sorry, there's off-street parking in both the apartment complex that's there and the DOS sheet metal. So I know we've talked about it before, but I'd like to bring that up and come up with some kind of a solution for that. I guess I would also, ask for maybe some discussion on some of the policies that are supposed to guide us, like the climate action plan and so we've gone through the bike plan, but we've never gone through the climate action plan. and complete streets. So it seems like both of those might be good. I'm just looking at what I have for some other notes. I guess that's it for now. I mean, I've given you a list, a pretty detailed list in the past. So please, can you please refer to that as well? And thank you for putting on higher. That was one thing that I had a request. Thank you.
You're welcome. Crystal?
I don't know what specifically you'll have on the transit supportive design guidelines by the next meeting, but I'm happy to provide a status update on what we have and get feedback from the feedback.
Okay, thank you, Crystal.
Thanks.
Dan?
I like the climate action plan idea. Maybe someone from planning could present that. I don't know if that is related, obviously. And I don't, that'd be a lot of work for someone on your team to read all that, but the people who prepared it probably have presented that many times. So that'd be really, really interesting.
Thank you, Dan. Bruce, I'm not sure if your hand, you just didn't lower it. Or...
No, yeah, I just re-raised it. Yeah, I just want to say that the climate action, our present climate action plan has some very specific transportation targets, you know, and several of them have to do with schools. But there's bike mode share target, there's walk mode share target, and there's I think there's about 7 out of only like 14. So a good 50% of all of the transportation targets have to do with cycling and walking. And for obvious reasons, because we, you know, 60%, actually it's now up to 66% of our, you know, greenhouse gases come from cars. So, so we just, you know, I don't know what to say, you know, the place is just going to burn up if we don't do something about, you know, getting people out of their cars. So that's definitely where we're headed. Thanks.
Thank you for the suggestions. Let's go to the public. Boy, Taylor.
Is it me?
Yeah.
I think I'm the only public, yeah?
No. Go ahead.
Oh, it's me?
Am I muted still? No, you can go ahead.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make a suggestion. I wondered if you guys would consider just looking at the design of crosswalks in general. So I actually live on Forest, which is just south of Higher that you were just looking at. So I take my dog out every day. We do about 3 miles. And there are so many different designs of crosswalks. There are, if you think of a crosswalk as a ladder, yeah, you've got the sides and then the rungs. Well, some of them only have the lines on the side, but some of them only have the rungs. They don't have the lines on the side. And some are yellow and some are white. Actually, the ones down on Castro Valley Boulevard are red and black for some reason. At the junction of Redwood and Castro Valley Boulevard, there are 2 different designs in the same junction. But the biggest problem is that the majority of them just have the rungs. Yeah, they don't have the sides. And there's no line where cars are supposed to stop. If it's at a junction, yeah. You know, so imagine you're at a stop sign or a stop light and there's a crosswalk. There's no line where cars are meant to stop behind the crosswalk. And so consequently, cars roll forward to the front because they want to look to the left so they can make a right turn as quickly as possible. And when you're trying to cross, there is always a car in the crosswalk. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, why do you have this design that doesn't delineate where cars are supposed to stop before the crosswalk? And in fact, if you do bring back the design for Higher, I'd like to see where the crosswalks are going to be across all the cross streets, because it's a very busy foot traffic road with, there's actually, you were missing one school, you missed Marshall on your diagram. And it's really important to have, you know, in a sense, crosswalks that have delineation where cars stop before they get to the crosswalk. And so I guess there's 2 things. I don't know what the modern designs are. On Anita, you just put in this design that just has the rungs but without the sides. And so try crossing Somerset at Anita, and there's always a car in the crosswalk when you're trying to cross. Yeah. So that would be my suggestion, maybe to better understand the designs, maybe some of them are old, but you seem to be putting in the ones I consider less than optimal, still right now. I just don't know why there are so many different styles. And I think for a driver, one, standardization and things being the same is important, and there being a clear line to say stop here, especially near schools, is super important. So just a suggestion.
Thank you. Okay, Michael.
Okay, so this is a twofold point. I should have brought this up earlier before Roy's comment, just when you were opening up to the committee. But one is, I think I'm going to throw back out my bike and ped design 101 class. As a session, I said, have a working session with our group that basically just starts from scratch looking at some of these things. So, for example, Roy just brought up crosswalk design. Why are there so many? Which ones, what do they do? Blah, blah, blah. How do colors get selected? Just some basic stuff so that as a group, we just kind of getting on the same page where we can about stuff. And that's going to dovetail into people like Nikki Winty, and other people that aren't here, like to Roy's point, some of the people that don't come. When was the last time we talked about anything in Pleasanton? Dan's out there, but Dan's all over other places too. But I'm just saying, if you're Nikki, we never talk about it. We only talk about Castro Valley. So this all could almost be a Castro Valley meeting. We don't talk about other areas of, where other people live in Oakland or other parts of unincorporated areas. Kind of just where some people that attend here, ride a lot, are familiar with, but other of us aren't. So I'm just saying, if we did kind of a design 101, something like that, where then as we talk about issues where they occur, other members of the committee have an idea, oh, okay, so that's, and maybe the thing is, maybe some things rotate. We don't always have to have a presentation from all around the county, but maybe when you guys are doing other work, Amber, doesn't have to be the big presentation, but just say, for example, we're doing some road design out in Pleasanton or out in Dublin, and here's where we're doing stuff. Just so you're going to bring in, kind of pull together people that historically haven't been showing up. I'm not saying this is going to guarantee them to come, but at least you're talking about their area a little bit when they do come. That helps, I would think. And then it just kind of puts us all on the same page. So it's kind of like a little threefold thing, but I think it could be helpful, and I'm happy to try and write it out as a better idea than what I just rambled on about.
Thanks. Bruce, did you want to say something else?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just want to say we've actually done quite a few other projects in Ashland and Cherryland. I know the Welling was one, and I can't remember the name of that other. Oh, Meekland, that's what it was. I was trying to remember Meekland. And I'm pretty sure there's some other ones, but anyway, yeah. So, but Castro Valley is the largest part of the population-wise anyway, the largest part of the unincorporated area.
Yeah, and that wasn't an attack against what we've done. I'm just saying, but even if you include the Ashland, Cherryland, and Llewellyn, if you're Nikki Winty, what does that mean to her?
Right. Yeah.
Let's see. I think that's all we have for tonight's meeting. Let's talk about the next meeting, December. Usually we have it on the 4th Thursday. That puts it on December 28th. I put on the agenda a proposed date of December 14th. I'm not aware of any standing meetings that will happen on that day. So it's not set on that day. If you guys still want to keep the 28th, I'm okay with that. I'll be here. But does anybody have any preference for the 14th or the 28th? I just want to make sure that you guys are available. We'll have quorum.
I probably would be gone on the 28th, I would expect. I could always try to go on Zoom if I'm if other people can't make the 14th. I could try to get on Zoom if on a halt. That would be an off work week for me. maybe traveling the 28th, so 14th.
Our offices are closed that week too, so.
So can I just like get like a very informal vote? If you can make it on the 14th, raise your hand and then put your hand back down. If you can make it on the 28th, raise your hand, okay? So the 14th, if you can make it, can you pop up your hand? 1, 2, 3.
Oh,
The 14th. At least you.
Oh,
you
he's using,
check this.
oh, he knows how to do it.
Either one is fine.
so.
I saw your hand go up, so if three can make 14. Okay, the 28th, if you can make it 28th also.
I'm
Okay,
pretty
so
sure
just
I'll be
this-
here either way.
I don't. Okay, so I'll set it up for the 14th then, okay?
Right.
And we'll send out the agenda before the meeting. And with that, this one is adjourned at 7:14. We'll see you next time. Okay, thank you for
Thank
joining
you
us.
so much.
Thank you.
okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.